add any extra notes I need to.
There we go. Whew. Hey, Marie.
I have a whole notebook if you need it. I've got this size.
Good morning.
Good morning, David.
Mine's that size. My granddaughter gave it to me. Yeah, that's a journaling thing. It says Aquarius on it. But she said, I know you like to take notes about your Bible stuff.
I don't need nothing else
So
to
what
take care of.
Yeah, I appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah.
They had a little farm auction down here in Greenville yesterday. Yeah, Jack come out of the house with his fuel tank he bought.
I'm like, we should just throw that stuff away.
What'd you buy?
I mean,
Well, I didn't buy
like,
nothing.
it really is all over.
Sale down there.
Well, I mean, the reason you take them is because you want to look at them again sometime, maybe.
I see the name on there, yeah.
And sometimes.
You already bought them one time, how much did you buy them again,
Well,
man?
That's what I like about my grandmother's Bible. She would make like a little star somewhere. She would never mind go to that. Oh man, my Bible was highlighted. I didn't worry about it.
I don't know what I want to.
She texted me Friday and yesterday she said,
We're not going to Arkansas.
she gave me
Not
like
going to
7.
Arkansas? Not enough ducks. Not enough
Well,
ducks.
you got a lot of scores.
Oh,
So everybody goes to Arkansas.
yeah, well, yesterday.
Morning, Brian.
Jericho.
We rode.
Huh?
Y'all done fought the Battle of Jericho.
Not yet. Not yet.
That's lunch.
What's that?
We went down there and
I thought
coming
we
back,
moved one over here down.
that's not killing this hill that I heard.
Look, but I don't think so.
Oh, here,
The new shirt and no, and, so,
maybe the other one.
There's two microwaves in the.
it's one of them deals, I just need to take some time to ride and get used to sitting on
Or maybe we just moved it over.
it. Yeah,
All right.
and, the wider than the Harley,
Or let me hear
so
that.
I was gonna take my Harley. And that Chevrolet truck.
We'll get started in just a minute.
You waiting on me to hush?
No.
Okay.
No. You finish your story.
And, so, I was gonna take my Dodge Dually. I was gonna take my old two-wheel Harley with me, so she could ride Canada and I'll ride Harley.
In a long time.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a long ride.
I do. I just have my
So,
notes.
put my thing that loads the bike back in the truck yesterday afternoon and
So
all
like I
that.
answer the questions and I have.
Back the
notes
truck
on
back in the
side
shop,
that I make.
put some stuff in,
That's why I write
right
this
back
so I can
wheel,
write down
brakes
something
kick.
that something that interested me.
So I got something going on in the brake. Got check engine light come on
So
the
this
can
one, I actually just got it
So
yesterday.
I got something going on with that. And they called me the other day, wanting me to take a rocket launcher out to White Sands, New Mexico this week. I've been coming, I'd have got back yesterday.
Text messages, so I don't know that
But
I
I
can
told her, I
get them.
said, I ain't got time to get ready to go on
Or
my trip.
he'll,
I take
because
it
he's
slow.
watching a show, he'll swipe it up.
I
And I
told
swiped
her
it that
this
way.
morning, I said, I think this Lord trying to tell me we
And so
just need to go to
everybody
Arkansas.
said, I saw you read it, and I'm like, are we having a problem?
It's just been one of them weeks, you know what I mean?
And.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. It's a few minutes after. It's like 9:50 something. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your responses to the text message. I thought more people were going to be out, but we do have several out, so pray for them as they're traveling and whatnot. We come into this lesson. This is part 2 of this more in-depth study, Daniel chapter 7, and then he moves on to 11 because this is just the prophetic pieces of Daniel. And there's a lot going on here, even though for me personally it was a little bit lighter in material, but I don't want to prejudice that. I probably should have waited to say that because I want to see what you thought about it first, now that I've poisoned the well.
No,
What did you think?
I felt the same way. I felt like the football example overpowered what the actual lesson was, but that
Okay.
was just my. Maybe I was in a mood whenever I watched it, but I'm like,
Well,
I
Georgia-
quit watching it.
Georgia Tech didn't play this week. That's why you're in a mood.
It's like a repeat from last week.
Okay, a little bit of a repeat. Yeah, there was some repetition there.
Well, he probably
Yeah.
could have used a little better analogy than that, maybe.
Yeah. You know, I mean, hey,
But
it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and at least he made his point, right?
think last week I had 3 or 4 pages of notes from watching the video, and yesterday I had 1 page, almost.
Yeah, a little bit lighter. Yeah, okay. Anything else? There are just a couple things. This is kind of where we're going to have some time to explore since it's a little bit lighter material, but there are a couple things I wanted to pick out. But anything else?
Well, I think he focused a lot on the law in judgment a little more.
Yes, he did spend a good bit of time on that, and which is the last point I have here. So I went ahead and wrote down some of the attributes that was listed of this Antichrist figure that we see in Daniel. Now, this is only from Daniel, right? I mean, there's more attributes if you go into Revelation, but from Daniel, these are the attributes that I picked out. This person going to wage war with the saints and be winning this war, or at least, let me preface that, starting, or,
Appear to be.
winning at first. How about that? Because he will be persecuting and killing the saints. That's a thing. He comes after these 10 kings that show up. There's a timing there. And he will subdue 3 of these 10 kings. He's going to speak out against God, boast against God, claim to be God. Right? Those are probably repeats from last week. All those are probably repeats from last week. But the last one is new, I think, for this week. Make alterations in times and law. Right? This is what he spent all the time on. He talked about the French Revolution, how they tried to get rid of the calendar and all that. And me and Tiff were talking, and what exactly does this mean? I know Tommy talked about it some, but what does that mean to me? Alterations in times and law. Like, what do you think that means? Because it doesn't really go into detail, it just says it, but what does it mean?
To me, I felt like that they were attempting to erase all accountability.
Erase all accountability? What is that? What do you mean by accountability?
Well, how he was talking about the calendar changing and stuff, and the I'm trying to remember what the word he used, but referencing how man was in charge and there was a greater being that we look to, and where the man wanted to be their own greater being, not be accountable to God.
I got you. Yeah. Constitution. Where do our rights and liberties come from? God.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they don't, where do they come from? Either they come from a person, a government, or you don't have any.
But
right?
you can relate this to what's going on now with other countries saying we don't have any leaders, we don't have any way, we're going to do as we please.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
Anarchy,
if you relate
right?
to what's going on now, history, not corrected, repeats itself, regardless. It usually, that's
well, we do have a habit of repeating the same mistakes.
Same mistake.
Over. And we can see this kind of today if you've been looking at like some of the scientific research when we have the calendar and you got BC and AD, right, which are Christian term or have Christian connotations in them, right? Now they're using BCE and CE, and CE being Common Era, before Common Era, after or Common Era, and trying to remove Christ from the calendar. Now that's
you're trying to figure it out, and that's what we need.
That's one, that's one attempt. But I think this Antichrist figure is going to like mandate it. Me and Tiff were talking yesterday as we were discussing this lesson. I can imagine Antichrist in his attempt to get rid of all aspects of Christianity. Any Christian names would be banned. You're Matthew? No. Change your name or you die. Mark, Luke, John, like all those names, biblical names. I could imagine it. Now that's speculation. I mean, I think you're talking about a figure who is anti, like it's in the name, literally anti-Christ. Anything is going to be out of the way.
And I took that last one where it says that makes alterations in times and law. The law is going to be under the Antichrist changing everything. The time is when God comes. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it in two things, the bad and the good.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was.
That's not a bad analogy. That's one way to think of it. I think, I think this Antichrist character, just like we did with Christ, right? You got to remember, Satan and his, Antichrist, they're trying to emulate God. They're trying to be God. And so just like Christ, right, we have a calendar based on him, right? Antichrist wants that same thing. So I could imagine it's going to be something like, this is year 1, right, when he takes over.
And I keep forgetting, it's only for 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That this Antichrist is going to be
Yeah,
doing this.
it's only 3.5 years.
There's a lot to happen in 3.5
It is a lot to happen, and it's going to
I keep
be.
forgetting about the years.
It's going to be.
These Jewish people are going to be suffering.
Yeah, it's going to be a terrible time
It is.
when this Antichrist and the law. Like, what does that mean? Like, our law right now, common on, it even in non-Christian countries, there is a Christian basis. Thou shalt not kill, right? Thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not steal, right? Moral laws, right? That comes from Christianity.
Right.
Where does that come from if you don't have God, right? And it's going to be something like, I can imagine, speculation again, right? If it's going to be kill those who don't support me, right? It's going to be chaos.
Well, that's already out there.
Yeah.
Don't have to go very far to get
Yeah, it's right. It's happening.
And
right
you're
now.
seeing the birth pains of this. Like, you're seeing parts and pieces of this now.
Right.
But imagine all this coming together, right? It's
And a little
gonna be
bit
crazy.
more depth study, some of them studying in the past had epithesies in it where he was conquering all these countries that's being talked about now.
Mhm.
He was going through all that, and they called him a wild man, a madman, because of what he was doing, and they
Mhm.
thought, oh, this has already been fulfilled in prophecy.
Yeah.
And it hadn't. So
Yeah.
that
So
was just a preview of what's going to
Yeah.
take place.
and that
Right.
He came
Yes.
in peace and showing them what he was going to do in peace, and then turned around and caused war.
yeah.
We have people coming in the country now that's peacefully coming in. We're not bringing our weapons in with us. We're coming in. We're here.
Mhm.
What is your motive?
Yeah.
What are you after? Some's after a better living. Some's after to get all what they can get. What are you
In our country, and what's going on right now in America is our laws are being ignored,
right?
Mhm.
and it's
what
changing our
happened to
whole thinking for the ones that are non-Christians. It's
Yeah.
changing everything.
There,
So this is happening right now.
Well, it breaks your heart
everything
when
is
you have-
leading up, right? Is being set up for this. How long it takes?
When you have
Don't
people
know.
in America
Right.
that's disagreeing with what's going on, Israel was at fault, and you're looking at things happening, and they're, oh, it's okay to kill the babies and cut their heads off over there. That's what they need to do to Israel. But when it
But-
comes to their door,
Well,
what do they say about that? Oh, it's so inhumane.
I
And
yeah,
We're
I totally
following.
agree. Like, it's inhumane, it's terrible. But in the time of the Antichrist, like, there will be no opposition to that
Right.
statement. They're against me. Like, it's fair game. Like, eradicate them. I think the biggest probably example for us right now in history is probably World War II. Nazi Germany trying to eradicate the Jews,
They took over, yeah.
right? I keep coming back to it because to me it's like the clearest example. Like, imagine Nazi Germany winning. Like, and you see that in World War II. They were winning at first. Like, they were conquering lots of, luckily through the grace of God, right? We had opposition to them and, some internal problems that helped bring them down. But what if it didn't go that way?
From 1983 to 1986,
Mhm.
and when you go over there, we didn't live on base. We lived 20 miles out. We lived on a farm and
Mhm.
stuff like that. The people out there, you would still see these big old holes in their homes and the
Yeah.
sides. It was a mess. If they had, typically they just have mostly cows, but they have cows and goats, more hoof things like that. And for them to sit and tell you, especially the older people.
Mhm.
So we were very fortunate that they were willing to share their history with us. So the grandchildren would interpret what their grandparents was telling us what it was like.
Mhm.
And I said, well, did y'all not like Americans or what? Oh no, we loved Americans.
Everybody loved us, now they don't.
And
They
and
come
I
in and help.
asked because my dad was actually here during that time, and she said, when you go back home, you need to thank your father for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, how amazing. And so, and they, what the whole point they were saying was, they wanted to make sure that I knew some of their history from their point of view, and they just asked, you keep sharing that with your children and your grandchildren, so maybe nobody else has to go through things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's the hope.
There's gonna be a remnant
It
of
is a-
people.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
they're
in the ISS doing it with the football analogy, I like examples. I like watching
Mhm.
things that they try to set examples with. But the only thing I can see out of that, if you're running a foot race, if you're running a marathon, you're running it for yourself. You're out to win for yourself. And the football team, they're in a game.
mm-hmm.
They're a team.
Yeah.
Is the team together, or is that one person out there for all the speculations? One can't do their thing without the other.
So I was
So when it
gonna
starts
come up to
separating
that point.
When it starts separating individuals, how's that quarterback gonna make if he didn't have blockers? If he doesn't have them, that's one of the crucial things
Yeah.
in the game.
So yeah. So that football analogy I think breaks down at a point, and I want to talk about that.
Right.
But let's go through our discussion questions. This is the first one he gives, and we can talk about this going into the future. A lot of times we talk about, well, if you could go into the past, right, who would you talk to? But that's not the question. If you go into the future, see one person, place, or events, where would you go and what would you want to see? And, I'll start with this table over here. What do y'all think about that? Where would you go? What would you want to see?
The first thing that comes to my mind is my grandchildren.
Yeah.
I mean, I would want to see that they're done well, they're happy,
Mm-hmm.
contented in life. And
Yeah.
that's the first thing that popped into my mind.
That was kind of the first thing that popped into my mind is like,
That's what runs
did
through
Leanna
my
make
mind
it?
when it comes to
You know.
watching children. People used to think they wasn't gonna live past 50 years old.
Yeah.
There were old people at 50.
Yeah.
But still, you look at it today, I've lived a pretty good life. I'd love to see y'all live your life
Mm-hmm.
in a similar fashion.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it's gonna happen because.
Well, but you'd want to see. Anybody else over here?
I think I'd like to see that all my loved ones that are still here on this earth made it up to the rapture.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I think, everybody's kind of on the same page. We want to see our lineage, right? Our family, our friends, come to see. And I totally agree with that. This is kind of an icebreaker question. It's kind of a gimme, right? There's no right or wrong answer. It's only wrong if you go into the past to the question.
Right.
Okay, but this one I think has some deeper connotations in here. If the future has already occurred in the mind of God, what confidence can we then have in His sovereignty over our lives? So he talks about this, right? That, in the mind of God, these things have happened, right? He's seen them, right? What is your answer to this question? What confidence can we have in His sovereignty over our lives? And, my deeper question is, what does it mean that these things have occurred in the mind of God? But
Well, he knows.
let's start
all.
over there.
He knows all that's going to happen.
Okay. He knows all that's going to happen.
Everything that is going to happen, he already knows.
Okay.
And what is the most mentioned phrase in the Bible?
Fear not.
Fear not.
And the next one is trust God.
Mm-hmm.
And God is actually the law for us
Yeah.
Christians.
God is the standard.
He is,
Yeah.
and hopefully it'll come back.
Okay.
So when we all see fear, do we get up and try to do something about it, or do we just wanna watch it happen? You see something happening out, your kid gets sick, you're trying to doctor that kid so the other one doesn't get sick, your animal's out there
Well-
dying, you wanna get that one well, find out what's going on, you won't lose them all.
Well, I don't think we're called to do nothing. But then again,
There-
I don't
you
think
gotta put
we're
action
called to
what you're
change
doing.
everything. There's things we can't change.
Yeah.
And I think, the verse where do all that you can do, and then once you're done, stand.
There
That's
you
all
go.
you can do,
Yep.
right? What about this table over here?
I said, I have full confidence that, you know, we have, in God's sovereignty, because I would compare it, I guess, because of our part of life that we're currently in, like a baby or a young child trusting a parent or caregiver to provide and protect them is the same way we should view God, except, you know, we have error.
Have you met our kids?
I said baby, young child. They know that they don't have to worry about food. They
Well,
don't have to worry
You
about
can't hit
danger.
him.
I bring that up because we do this all the time. Kids ask for
That's
something,
right.
and I say, not now.
Yeah.
And they get all up in a tizzy fit. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You can't have that now because we're about to go out for a nice dinner, right? There's something better ahead, right? That's the example. But the kids never fails, at least at this point. That trust is lacking, for lack of a better word.
Well, you give up something to have something.
Right? They
That's all.
can't put off, right? I want the Cheetos now,
Yeah,
right?
Well,
But they haven't yet reached the age of accountability yet.
Well, I
either.
don't know about some of them. Some of them, you know,
But
but
then parents also discipline.
yeah.
God also disciplines.
And that's part of the learning process. And bring that up. We're all doing the same thing to
Well,
God.
At least you're explaining
Right.
it to them, and that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Instead of just saying not now, you're explaining why not now.
Well,
That's a good
the
thing.
second or third time after they're pouting around.
people are beginning to be kids again because the first thing you're gonna get is half truth out of what they're telling you anyway. You're not gonna get the whole story right off the bat of what role they played in, what's going on, or what's happening. You're getting half truth, and that's what's happening to us. What I news media and all this is half truth,
Yeah.
and half truth is not much more than a lie.
And it's no different with Dave and I. When he wants something, I say, you can't have it until you sell something.
Yeah. Tell us more, Marie. Tell us more.
His words turns into mumble.
Hey, at least I don't want a boat.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
That was just a
Man.
That might
A little bit.
Man, that's rough. Tough crowd, tough crowd.
But it happens to us adults.
Yeah, no, it does happen. It does happen. So, you know, we're all in agreement that we can have confidence in God, but reality is, right, being human, we fail a lot, right? And I want us to look at, like, these end times, right, when this Antichrist comes, like, this football game analogy I like because it's going to come down to the wire, right? We haven't seen bad in comparison to what's about to happen. And when you see God's chosen losing and like about to come to annihilation, are you still going to have faith? Right? That's a different answer. Like today, like even with the terrorist attacks in Israel, right? We have countries lining up against this evil, right? What if that
Line up against Israel.
what if they didn't
$1
happen?
is
Right? What if it was all one-sided against Israel? Are you going to have faith in, like, that's what I'm saying. It's easy preaching, hard living. It's easy to say now in this time, but it's going to be rough.
My daughter came to visit me this week and brought a boyfriend with her, and both of them's in the Navy and counting the Jews. And we were discussing what's going on.
Mhm.
He said, really, we can't afford to go into a war right now.
Yep.
Because we are so weak.
War is
What we need.
expensive.
War is really expensive, but if we get involved with Israel, if Israel don't go on and annihilate all that bunch over there, we get involved in it, which we should, they're our allies.
Mhm.
But where do we go from there? We're weakening down ours to have another country come in and collide with us.
Well,
World War II was
and-
a good example.
And I'm sure there are people in the Pentagon running the numbers because
That's
war
They're
has
running the numbers on
historically
what the cost
killed
is.
more countries than the war themselves. The cost of war, right?
But it seemed used to that if an American was in hostage or if an American was being killed, we retaliated immediately.
Mm-hmm.
This is war.
Mm-hmm.
You're killing our people. Now they want to wait to see how many more die. This human life has done gotten to be a third world country.
Yeah.
Believe me, I talked to a lot of Latinos
But-
that say they saw their country.
Yeah, we in this country are a little bit ignorant of these things that go on in the world,
They're not, because
right?
they-
Which is
the
great.
body can lay out
Like
there
that's what
and-
we want, right? We want our children to be ignorant. Like this whole what he talks about, beat our swords into plowshares, right?
Right.
Who doesn't want that? at the same time, in this world, I think it'd be a little foolhardy to do that right now, right? Right? But I hope for a future that happens, and we have confidence that that will happen. That's why the Bible's there. So that's one of the confidences that we can have.
Third world countries, like the guy was explaining to me in Mexico, and I told him I've heard about what went on in Mexico.
Cartel fights and
Somebody
stuff.
comes up, gets killed at 12 o'clock midnight. Before the officials or anybody, that body could lay out there on that ground till 2:30 the next day or 3 o'clock before they even move it. Do
Yeah.
we have that in America?
No, not yet, but it could happen. Now,
And they just cook it up and move it.
yeah, I want to explore this idea, and this was new. We haven't really talked about this. This mind of God, right? The future's already occurred in the mind of God. This is what Tommy Nelson says. Now, what we talk about, like, obviously God knows what's going to happen. That's a property of God. He knows. He's above time and space as we know it. Right? He can see the past and the future. He is the author of history from the past to the future. But what does it mean that it's occurred in the mind of God? What do you think Tommy's talking about? Is all this, is God's just thinking about his creation, or is it actually happening in God's mind? What do you think Tommy means by this?
I think because God is all knowing, we need to remember he is all knowing. He knows our choices we're going to make and decisions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So we can have his sovereignty over our lives as long as we keep believing, okay, these events that take place, like John getting sick and, all this stuff, y'all all know about all that. So it's like, but through it all, I knew that God was right there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the path I wanted to walk down. I wasn't ready to walk down that path yet. But God put us in the right place with the right people to help us through all that, 2 years of his illness.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, y'all know how goofy I am. Sometimes like, Jesus, would you just please tell me what to do? Hello, I'm listening, things like that. And then it's like, he doesn't need to tell me. I just need to shut up and listen and look and see what sovereignty he does have over my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could talk for a long
Yeah.
time about that. Y'all know
Yeah.
I could, but I won't. But I mean, I think just knowing his sovereignty is there.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves me so much that he's not going to give any of us any more than we can handle.
Mm.
But he's going to allow us to need each other because he created us to be people with each other.
Yeah, humans definitely have a social aspect to them. That's why church is so important. What else about this mind of God? I really want to explore into this, right? Because there's some deep philosophical issues that kind of creep up in subtle ways in our lives. One of the old philosophers, and I can't remember his name. One of the later ones, his name was Berkeley, but this idea came before him, and I couldn't find the name. This idea that everything that's happening, like our lives, are happening in the mind of God, right? That's how he's keeping track of it. Now, that's like a Christian version of the Matrix, right? Mm-hmm. Right? And that has subtle implications, because if that's true, and this is an idea, it's still going around today, that, well, if we're just dreams, really, like, is there really even morality here? Is anything really worth anything? And I was looking up Tommy's actual thoughts on this, and I couldn't find it. Now, Tommy's written a lot over the years. He's been a pastor for 40 years, so searching, like, it's quite a research project to go through all of his, thoughts and stuff, and I couldn't find it in time for this. But this idea that all this is happening in the mind of God somehow makes it like we're a dream. And I just wanted to bring out the fact that is a viewpoint, right? That is a viewpoint. I think it's got terrible problems, and I don't think it's sustainable. Right? God created things. There's a physicality of it. And, you know, there is a big emphasis on the physical. For example, we're going to get a new body at the end.
Thank God.
Why would we get a new body? Right? A lot of people think we're just going to be souls and we're going to be floating around in heaven. Not. The Christian, like, we're going to get a new body. And notice it, like, if we're going to beat our plows into, our swords into plowshares, like, we're still going to be doing stuff. Right? There's a physicality to it. So I just wanted to bring that. That was something that stuck to me, and I was like, I wonder what Tommy really means about that. Because it is a philosophical term, and I'm like, I kind of see it, right? It depends on how you're using those words.
I kind of had thought concept on that right there. You know, if you're doing it it's when you get to heaven. I mean, these people are used to living in their own comforts. The way my parents were raised up, the way I was. Get to heaven. You go on back there to the way they were doing in Israel and lived in their rocks. Are they going to still be segregated like that, or everybody's going to have their own garden, or what? I mean,
we don't know.
You don't really know that, but you're wondering. You know, they come through a lifestyle, and every year and generation that it changed, everybody talks about it. Oh, we used to do this. We used to have to do that. We did this, and now it's no more.
Yeah.
Well,
Jesus died when he was in his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I'm looking at
And when we go to heaven, we're going to be no older than he is.
Where does it say that?
In the Bible, it says something about you won't be wearing glasses. You won't, I mean, you won't have no pain.
Yeah.
So
There are some things it says, right? I think a new body, I would interpret to be like my vision will be repaired, you know, oldness. I don't know.
broken elbow won't be broken no more.
Yeah, I don't think it says an age in particular. A lot of people speculate that, you know, 30s, they're okay. You know, 18 was a lot better for me personally, you know, but we don't know. But yeah, that new body, that a body free from sin, right? Right? Think of that, right? Where right now our flesh is consumed by worldly desires, right? It's always fighting. But imagine a flesh that didn't have that. That would be something wild. And I don't even think we could process that right now.
When you finally hit reality, and I use myself as an example, I've been using the computer more.
Mm-hmm.
Because of
Good for you, Brian.
history of looking things up that you're not familiar with and wondering, you know,
Mhm.
that's what you want. You go in, you look up and see what these people have to say.
Yeah, internet's always right.
It's that, and you know, just looking at things is different. Worrying about what this is worth, looking at different things.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, I got laughed at about seeing a blue squirrel, so you can go to the internet, punch it in, blue squirrel, and they'll show you pictures of
You
blue
got to let go of the blue squirrel,
I know
Brian.
that, man, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
No, I get the
thing
idea.
is, okay, you get called an idiot, you get called crazy, you seeing things,
Mhm.
so now you know, okay, go to this website, just look at them.
Well, just think though, like in heaven, like
That is imagining.
there's going to be something physical
If we had
there.
a window to heaven, I think heaven has a window seeing us. That's what I see.
Well, God can definitely see what
That's
we do.
right.
But like,
Heaven has a window.
well, will there be computers in heaven? Will there be electricity in heaven? Will we still have to heat
I hope we
food?
don't need them.
I don't know. These are just, you know, thoughts. The Bible doesn't go into detail. It's not a manual on heaven. I'm sure we'll figure it out when we get there.
World's on
Yeah. All right, moving on.
World's on automatic now. They don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. They
Moving
just want
on.
to go to the table and eat.
Yep.
And sleep.
But
So is that heaven?
for a lot of people, yeah, comparatively.
All right.
All right. Got to move on.
Get off on it.
The third question, you should all know the answer to, but I put it here. The 4 historical kingdoms alluded to in Daniel 7:17. And I'll put the quote here. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. That's what he quotes. Now, what are those 4 kingdoms? You should Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. This repetition, right? Tommy's really hammering home, like this is what's going to happen. Now, we know that from history. We know that the 4th beast is different, right? We was talking about this earlier, me and Tiff. But the 4th beast is different. In that first vision of Nebuchadnezzar, right, with the statue, right? These 4 beasts is represented as like gold and bronze and something, and then iron mixed in the clay. It's blended toward the bottom. That 4th beast is a little bit different. It's blended toward the bottom, and this 4th that's where the 10 horns are. Okay, so that's why when he keeps saying it's going to be a resurrection of Rome, that's where that's coming from. Because if Rome is that 4th beast, then these 10 horns have to come from the whatever that resurrection turns out to be, this 10-nation confederacy from the ashes of Rome. That's where that comes from. What that looks like, we don't know. And then that smaller horn that pops up later, also, notice it's on that 4th beast. So it is also going to come from these ashes of Rome. What it looks like, don't know exactly. But notice the size difference. Notice it says smaller. So it's going to appear, yeah, it's human because it has eyes, but it's also appear to be a little bit, the sizing indicates that it's not going to appear to be strong. It's going to be weaker in comparison, but then he's going to overthrow 3 of them.
It's another, because if you look at the longhorns on the bulls that are Texas and all that, and they still have them, you fear those big horns better than you do a little old button horns out there on a little bull. And you feel like you got more of advantage.
And I think that's kind of what it's indicating, Brian. Like, it's going to be, you're going to notice it, but you're not going to feel threatened by it, right? Especially when you got these 10 other horns. This one's going to be like, we're going to ignore it because we got these 10 other horns.
What are the deer hunters after? More and more of the points on the horns of a deer to be king of killing the deer.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and that's just human nature, because humans, right, we're looking for what's the biggest threat that we see. Right? And hey, you can save yourself a lot of hassle if you look for the threats that you don't see. That's just life lessons right there. Defensive driving, right? Don't look for the guy in front, look to the guy coming off to your left that's not stopping, right?
You're looking at the enemy with a pocket knife and a sword. I mean, that knife's going to do bad, but what's that sword going to do when it hits you one time?
Hey, look, man, it's like, hey, look out for your enemy with the gun out there in the distance, but the guy next to you with the knife, he can kill you too. So,
that's true, but,
okay.
The point is, what we got into is, I read a magazine. I worked for a boss man. He was a multimillionaire, and he'd sit and read magazines all the time. One time I picked one up, and it had to involve Christianity before I ever knew anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a detail explaining about the little horn, and Ben's I was in the oil business then too, hauling oil, gasoline, stuff like that. It was interesting. I read it. And he was talking about the little horn he was in to get Ethiopia, Lebanon, and Utopia, or what is one of the countries? Because of the Suez Canal.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted it because that oil channeled down through it. And every one of them makes money. Every time that thing passes through their border, they make money on that tanker, the oil down there.
Yeah.
So oil now is more valuable than the gold. Our money is backed by oil, not by gold.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the standards went up on money, is when the oil started coming in.
Yeah.
So Ethiopia.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all involved in that. And I was reading that, and I said, what? I said, I could see where they would want that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like playing the game Monopoly. You want certain properties, and they hope they're going to land on it, and you're going to make it.
But
So he's up to get those 3.
Well, let's clarify. Like the magazine, there's a lot of speculation out there, and I just want to clarify.
More sense to me than.
Well, it makes sense, but I just want to clarify what's the biblical data, right, and what's makes sense to man, but is speculation, right? There's a lot of things that make sense to me, and I try to what do you call it? I try to flag it down. This is Clint's speculation. I try to clearly delineate, right. So makes sense to me too, but does that mean it's biblical? That biblical data is not there.
And as you read up into it, you think about it, but then you know what's going on. Saudi Arabia has all the oil. They have it in the sands. They have it.
Oh yeah, true. But I don't want us to be, because if we're wrong, I don't want us to be, if you. Here's the problem. if you take that, if you take
Yeah.
speculation and you're wrong, it hurts your faith,
Yeah.
right? Because then it's like, well, and it's really all based on, well, that was my interpretation of Scripture, and you take it as Scripture's wrong rather
No, I
than
didn't look at
your
it that way.
interpretation of Scripture's wrong.
I
just,
compared it to
you know,
Scripture
that's-
after I started reading Scripture.
Well, I'm not saying that you are wrong. I'm just
No,
saying I can't, from a teacher's perspective, I can't espouse that because that's not what the biblical data says.
Biblical nature,
I
it comes
I
in
like
as
it.
peaceful.
I agree with a lot of things,
They come in
but
as
I can't
peaceful.
espouse that from the pulpit, so to speak,
Exactly.
right?
It comes into Saudi Arabia that the Arabians already, they dwell their wealth off this oil to each one of their family members. They don't just
Well,
come out and the people are starving over there around them.
Yeah.
So I look at
But-
it like the man coming in there saying, we're gonna do this for the people.
Mm-hmm.
But when he comes in as a peaceful man, he's gonna be wanting to say, we're gonna divide the wealth. We're gonna take it away from these and distribute it out to others. But he's gonna do it to his followers,
It-
not the people.
Makes sense, Brian,
sense to
but
me,
I can't.
but-
That's not.
I can't say that. Like it may or may not.
I'm a speculator, you know.
Well,
Looking. Uh-oh.
This isn't a speculation class, right? We try to take some rabbits, but not all. So coming to this question, we've kind of, I think, already discussed this question, these alterations to time and law, this idea that the calendar, even something as basic as a calendar. Think of your week, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Will those change? Don't know. Time.
Don't know when it's not gonna matter.
Time. Yeah. 24 hours in a day. Will that stay around? There's been experiments with metric time, which is kind of neat, but it doesn't work out too well.
The
And the
calendar.
lesson even said that God even said it's not for you to know the time.
Yeah.
But the calendar
Seasons?
was changed.
Like, how would
We
you
go
even
by it
change
now.
seasons?
The calendar did change because the Sabbath used to be the holy day. Everybody rested on the Sabbath.
Well,
And
yeah, everybody rested on the Sabbath, but we don't.
everybody decided to start worshiping on Sunday because they figured that was the day that Christ rose.
No, not everybody.
No,
No,
But
Not-
the
n-
earth only has to rotate an inch on its axis to change the seasons.
And will he try to do that? I mean,
Right.
it seems impossible now, but who knows?
Well, I mean,
You know?
later in
Yeah.
Revelation, it talks about he will be able to do things like Christ did.
Yeah,
Like resurrections and stuff.
yeah,
So
that is.
he will be able. He'll have what power God allows him to have.
That's my question.
Well,
Like, and that's ahead in Revelation. But the Antichrist will be killed, and then he'll be resurrected. Now, the only power that gives life is God. And so I wonder, did God either give life to the Antichrist himself, or did he give power to Satan to resurrect him? I've always been curious about that.
yeah.
Bible doesn't answer that.
No, it doesn't.
You know, but either way, it's a judgment on the earth. So, alterations to time, whatever that means, alterations to law. But I take this as fundamental society changes, like things that you don't even think of because they're baked in at the core, right? The calendar, your time, what's good, what's evil, right? Basic changes, names, right? Think about Old Testament, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were Jewish. That's their Babylonian names, right? He changed their names. That's a common thing. I could see the Antichrist doing that, right?
Well, I tried to sum it and just say he will attempt to erase God even through moral character and history. So
Yeah.
going back, changing what morals even are, because there won't be any.
Yeah, yeah. And you've got somebody in control of media and stuff. Like, you're thinking of history books being changed, like everything from the get-go being changed.
We always want everything balanced, and that's something that misses with me. We always want something balanced. Your load on your truck, the load something on, you want to balance your equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go out there and you see, like Darryl, them out there excavating dirt, and what was done around here, all that's moved around.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, it's not balanced anymore. But what keeps that together? We've got to have some kind of God or something looking after that to keep all this in balance. Because we get one little thing off balance, we've got a problem.
Yeah, it does.
And if the bubble's not where it is, it's all out of whack.
Well, that's why God keeps all that balance.
God keeps all of it balanced,
Yeah.
because like I said, I've seen that one day. They're digging a big hole over here and they're putting all the dirt over here in the pile, and I'm saying, what's keeping that from falling over that way?
Gravity and friction?
That's what they say.
So,
But
okay.
it's something to think about when you're trying to level everything out in life. That's what we're doing now, trying to level our lives.
Well, okay. We're going to kind of touch that. We're going to touch the edge of that question with this question. How does the Antichrist, understanding the rise and ultimate defeat of the Antichrist, help you keep your perspective in today's world? And then the second part, how does knowing that we win in the end encourage you right now in the present? We're dancing around the edge of this question, and I'll show you how we get there in a second. But, the immediate answer is, how does this understanding help you today? Right? That's the basis of this question.
I think for me, the main thing is no matter what happens, he's in charge, he's
Mm-hmm.
allowing certain things, and that it all just comes down to we have to keep our faith in him.
Yeah. And you're going to see it, and we see it today. Like all that Hamas stuff in Israel. You think God didn't know about that?
He knew.
September 11th, Pearl Harbor,
I can answer
Nagasaki, Hiroshima.
Can I
Right.
answer
He
a
knows all these
question
terrible
about what
things.
you said over here? He's trying to get David to
Why don't you ask her
balance out
permission?
What David wants and what David don't need, and what you gonna take out of his bag to put something else in it. Are you gonna go to the grocery store and take one item out because you need it more than you need what you have in your bag? And
Have you
this is
been
what
to the
we're
grocery
doing
store,
in
Brian?
life. It's a balanced life. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
You can't afford to put
Okay,
things in.
okay.
I
Let's.
see things left on counters now in stores because people get up there and they can't afford
Well,
it,
it's
and they leave
getting
it.
rough. It's getting rough,
That's-
and you
it's-
see
that's
it.
What are we leaving behind in our lives, and what are we taking more of in? Are we taking more of the knowledge of God in, or are we taking more of the world in? I'm finding myself fighting battles, listening to what's going on in the world, and knowing what God has for me.
Yeah. And everybody's fighting that same battle.
That's right.
Everybody fights the battle at the grocery store, right? We all fight those battles. But to dance around, to touch the edge of this question,
Yeah.
right? This idea of a balanced life. And I hear this a lot. If you're still working, open enrollment season is coming up for healthcare. And a lot of it is about wellness and,
If you're
you know,
retired, it's Medicare.
yeah, balance, like healthcare and balancing your life and all this stuff. But this idea of how does knowing that we win in the end encourage you right now, that to me is a misleading question, right? And I'm not disagreeing with Tommy here. I see what he's saying, but the basis of the Bible, and I want to be clear on this, it's not about you, right? We win. Like somehow this football analogy, right? The team is playing and you're on the winning team because you went to practice on us. When Christ comes back in Armageddon, read Revelation, because Armageddon isn't a battle. There's no fight. Like, yeah, sure, the armies of the earth line up to fight, but read what it says. It acts like the battle's over. Done. There is no fight. Now, did we win? Christ wins. We just being on the right side of history, but did we win?
No.
We didn't do anything.
We're just the beneficiaries.
We're the beneficiaries, right? We didn't do anything. And that's a theme throughout the Bible. All you did was sin and blaspheme God and deserve punishment. What you got was mercy and grace and forgiveness. But you didn't do anything. Christ died for your sins. You didn't do anything. Bible's clear on that.
The only thing we did was believe.
Believe.
Right.
You like, did you show up to practice? Did you open a sword? And you remember when Peter grabbed his sword and chopped off that guy's ear, right? Christ is like, no. Put that back, right? We're not doing that. And I think that's the whole point. You don't have to. You shouldn't. Don't. And so this we win phrasing, I don't really like. Christ wins. We're just beneficiaries of it. Now, that being said, this balanced life, what balance?
What balance?
right? There's no balance. There's no balance in the Christian life. All you need to be is on God's side. That's the balance.
Never read
God.
anything about balance in the scriptures.
Yeah, no, you don't. And really, it's an Eastern thought, right? When you see
Yin and yang.
yin and yang, right? That's an idea of balance. That is Eastern thought. That's not a Western thought. Your balance as a Christian should be pray to the Lord, pray to the Lord, pray to the Lord. Like, put it all on God. That's the balance. It's if you have the balance, God's side should be like this, right? There is no balance.
Another analogy, you're looking at how many people in this room has ever been on a set of crutches? That's had to use a set of crutches. What's the first thing you want to do? You want to get off of them crutches and get back to normal. You want to get off the crutch. What's the crutch? It's to help you get around. It's to do it. So you're going to have to eventually lay those crutches down and get back to what you were doing. Get back on focus. Get back.
But people, to use that analogy, right? You're broken. You want to get around on your own.
Right.
The Christian thought is you're broken. Hold on to Jesus, right? Like piggyback ride. That's what you need to be doing. And
That's right.
and those are subtle different. Like, I get it, right? I'm exaggerating it to make a point. But there is no balance in the Christian life. You should be throwing your problems at the feet of Jesus, right? All of them. Your whole life. It says to pray without ceasing. Now, that looks in different forms to different people, right? Please don't close your eyes praying going down the road. But everything that you do in life should be guided around the Holy Spirit and where He's guiding you. That's it. Like, that's your balance. Put it on Jesus. And you're like, oh, well, that seems unfair. I thought this when I was really young. Well, I don't want to be unfair to God. Like, I can do this on my own. Look, I know where you're coming from. You're going to mess it up. And you're not thinking high enough of God when you think of that. You think that God is somehow limited, right? That because He's helping you, He can't help somebody else. No, God is unlimited. He is all-knowing, all-present, all-powerful. Let Him help you, and He's going to help somebody else. Like, there's no limit. So don't not put your things on Him. That was terrible. Don't not.
No, but it's very well stated. It's understandable.
Put your burdens on Christ. All right? He died for you. He's trying to help you. And if you don't, and you try to do it yourself, the whole Bible is example after example of people trying to do it themselves, and it doesn't work out.
So, for me on this one, to me it's encouraging, and for me because in the understanding and everything, because I'm a very type A person, so like I know that's a shock to you, but I've got to plan everything. I've got to make sure everything's lined up and in order and the way it needs to go. And so for me to understand that this has already been answered, where a lot of people were flipping out on Friday whenever this Hamas thing was supposed to happen. Me 10, 15, I guess it would have been more than 15, 20 years ago before I was a mom and grown a little bit more, I probably would have flipped out and I would have been like, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to go out here, we need to go all these things. But I was just like, well, I mean, if it happens, it happens, and I know how this is going to end. Do I understand it all? And there's still a scared kind of connotation? Yeah, because no one likes the unknown. But as far as the last part, I don't know that I would use the word encourage, because with that part, it's the end. And I have a lot of friends that aren't going. So that makes it hard.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I use the word encourage. For me, I'm encouraged.
Yeah.
But I am terrified for friends and family that I know aren't going to be there.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
think we all have that.
Yeah.
there'll be a time and place where we can't reach out to those
We all
people
have
anymore.
that person we want to see again, whether it's just somebody we met yesterday. If you got a good relationship with them, more than likely you're gonna meet up with them again somewhere. So it's into that.
And I would say encourage here isn't just encourage as to build up your spirits. It definitely does that. But it should also encourage you, to get on the mission of the Lord, right? We have work here to do, and it's not here to just sit back, relax, and enjoy. That's not what we're called to do. If you call yourself a Christian and a follower of Christ, He gave us clear instructions. Go and make disciples.
I've already gave up the thought that I won't see some of them in heaven because they're not believers, and I don't know what to do about it.
You know, I've been in that situation. All I can say is don't give up hope. Now, maybe it's not you that is to reach out to them, but maybe you are a stepping block.
I'm just an example.
You know, and sometimes that's all we can do, right?
In the recent times that I've met people and they profess to be Christians, then they go to hearing about what somebody else has done over here and the hypocrites in the church, and that right there is going on.
Yeah, there are hypocrites in the
We're
church.
taking into that context.
It's filled with
God
them.
can forgive us of our sins.
Thank God.
That person can be forgiven of theirs.
And see,
If they're trying and they're struggling, I mean, I have people that's pretty well up into Christianity that try to tell me, how can you ever be forgiven for that?
yeah,
And you know,
There's-
that's where we got the borderline at.
there are all kinds of blockers for people in
Right.
Christianity, right? All our job is to go out and make disciples, try to knock down those blockers where we can, to clear out that path, to lead them through. That's all we can do. And that's why it's so important for us to monitor our behavior, right? Does somebody see you, stiffing a bill? Or, this grinds my gears so much. Why do restaurant servers hate Sundays?
Because you have to serve church people. like
Because you
said.
serve church people that are whiny and they don't tip,
Exactly.
right?
There you go.
I've
And
been
and
in
that
cultures before.
that is a ministry, like that
That's
reflects
true.
that reflects on Christianity, because shouldn't Christians be generous? Anyway, think about it. I mean, just small stuff like that impacts people, and then they tell people, and it's like, oh yeah, Christians are terrible. Yeah,
Against yourself there.
they don't understand that we're all in a progress. We're a work in progress too,
Well,
but they don't see that.
religious people are gonna give you trouble. They gave Jesus trouble.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But we understand that. They don't.
Well, and that was something I had in my position where whenever I worked, was I had to tell not all Christians are like this, and you have to understand Christians are human too. We're not perfect, and
Yeah.
think of church more as a hospital. There, people are sick and dying, and that includes the Christians that are in it.
Yeah.
You
But
know, so
we're also called to be examples,
Yeah.
right? It's a balancing act. I get it, right? And you can be forgiven, but let's try to be an example as best we can. Let our light shine through the world. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We'll pick up session 6 next week. If you're traveling, I hope you travel well. If you're here, great. This session will end, I think, December, the first or second week in December. It's on the calendar. We'll have 1 week in December where we're going to do like a mini lesson, a 1-week lesson, and then we're going to have about 4 weeks off. So that'll be the Christmas season, and then me and Tiff are going on a cruise. So, but I'll update that.
And the kids.
And the kids are coming too.
Sure, you need
But
somebody.
Yes, he's already put up.
the kids are also
kids are going
coming.
to daycare
Boo.
these days.
So
I didn't know they had sales on ship.
I didn't say they were coming on the same boat. I just said they're going on a cruise. So
That's why they got the lifeboats for the kids.
yeah.
Sounds like a Disney cruise
Yeah.
to me.
You need to check the computer
Okay.
before you do anything.
Yeah.
Because David wasn't here and I didn't start the computer.
All right.
Everything else, but not the computer.
Thank you. I will check that. Let's close in prayer. Father, thank you for this opportunity for us to come together and study your word. I thank you for Tommy Nelson and his lessons that he's provided to us. I pray that you'll open our hearts and our minds to the words we receive today and apply them to our lives. Father, as we go out into this world, I pray that you'll make us a light and blessing to all that we come across. All these things I ask for in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all for coming.
Thank y'all for coming.
Where is David? He's not feeling well.
His back is giving issues.
Oh my goodness.
You're going to be as bad as Kenny.
Hey, you cannot top Mr. Leg Pain.
I do have leg pain.
I'm offering free operations and these guys won't take it up.
I'd just be amazed one day to wake up with no pain.
Yeah, well, y'all talking about that new body. I mean, doesn't that sound just wonderful?
I look forward to that new body.